Hello, hello. How's it going, everybody? Music died right as I turned it down. I was like, oh, what did I do? Coming on to the holidays. I think maybe next week is going to be the last stream of the year. So it's exciting. It went by fast. I feel like the older I get, the more often I'm saying that relativity, right? So today what we're going to be looking at is a library called Lightning CSS, and it's put out by the same folks that worked on Parcel.js. All right. I know Devin is involved with both. Like I said, I don't know how the core teams all work out or whatnot. But what's particularly interesting about Lightning CSS for me is that it seemed like it was built for the purpose of working with Parcel, but in a way that it could be used outside of Parcel. Additionally, it's written in Rust, and it publishes a library or a crate in the Rust. So you can use this CSS transform minification lib in both Rust and in JavaScript, which I think is particularly interesting for Tauri. Get a bunch of job frames. What is the deal with that? Skip frames due to encoding lag. Hopefully it's fine. So I noticed. No, this way. Didn't quite center my green screen right. Hey, how's it going? I need to open up chat so the chat show up in the screen, but here we go. It's good to see you again. So today what we're going to be doing is playing around with Lightning CSS, kind of understanding its API service, and I think looking at bringing it into what we've been working on for the past handful-ish of streams. We were working with a Tauri app that we made, dubbed Redacted. This lib is set up to allow you to create windows of any color in a way that you can kind of put it over the top of things, so as to, when you're taking a screenshot or something, redact information. So rather than going post-processing and blurring something out, it's sort of like pre-process. Yeah, I'm definitely getting some what is with this? I'm gonna switch back and open up my. I don't see anything that could be eating up CPU. I upgraded OBS a few weeks ago, and I've had like weird little stability issues, which hasn't been great. OBS is the software that I use to stream on. Okay, maybe it's stabled out now. I'll keep an eye on that. I also have in Windows, you can set the priority of a process. So the button that I click to start up OBS is set up to increase the priority of OBS. So if I'm doing something like Rust, where you run a command and you get some like big heavy compute, that it doesn't potentially like lag out OBS. I'm still getting some skip frames. That is weird. I mean, it's not awful. Frames missed, good frames. I mean, we're at something like 1%, but my FPS just keeps dropping. That's so weird. That's frustrating. Oh well. I don't think I might be able to do anything with it live. I'm using like effectively no CPU, which is I think the most frustrating part about it. My like it's not doing much on my GPU. I mean, a little bit on my CPU, but not much. I mean, what can you expect? GPU memory usage, video encode. I don't know. For computers, I tell you. I think we're just gonna have to live through it. So what we're looking at, we're gonna see if we can incorporate it into this potentially, because we are allowing somebody to input colors, and we like initially we were doing sort of like a naive approach, which was fine. I mean, the code is up there, so like it shipped. But it'd be nice to be a little bit more explicit in what, or at least the options that people have to input what text colors would be. It's less important. Excuse me. It's less important in the GUI, like when you're clicking on it. But we kind of have like a WebSockets API now, which would be nice to expand on a little bit. So I think the stretch goal would be Chris Piscardi was trying this last week. Gradients would be really fun. But like if we run this npm, whoa, I move my keyboard here. I'm all wonky. npm run Tauri dev. I need to pump this up. Let that open up. And then you'd be able to type !hide and then a color, and that's going to like open up a thing on our screen when this opens up. So if I click connect, now it should just be working. Let's see if it works. You recently faced a problem with Tauri that you couldn't display images in the bundled version of your app. You tried all the tricks, and static and all, even the full path of the file didn't work. It definitely does sound like an issue with. So I guess maybe the initial question is it consistent between dev and build? That is, dev runs different enough that depending on your setup, you could see it working in one versus the other. If it's happening consistently, that's, I guess, a good thing. In dev, it works. Okay. If that's the situation, I'd almost always guess that's an issue with getting that asset into the actual bundle, which it seems like you've kind of looked into. Trying to think of what other gotchas you might end up running across. Do we have I don't remember if we've got a. I don't remember if we've got anything with embedding additional files. So it's going to depend how your, like what your build setup is. as far as the HTML, CSS, JavaScript side of things, so the front end, if it's bundling and putting that file somewhere, that might, like, if it was inlining the image into the actual bundle, then that would likely cause you less issues, because, not saying that that's necessarily the best way to do it, but it likely cause you less issues because you wouldn't have to worry about like getting it into the bundle. If it's not in the bundle, or if it's embedded directly into the HTML, it's sort of like naturally within the bundle. If we look at, I think this had some low, yeah, so this had like SVG and whatnot. I don't remember if I've touched this at all. I mean, we're in this case, we're specifically making, or we're specifically pulling in multiple HTML files. So I guess with our distr, we don't have a dist in here, do we? So if we run build, npm run Tauri build, that I believe is going to give us a dist. Yep. And this is going to contain the SVG. So we're telling the build and Tauri to package up this whole thing. So, oh man, what is... I'm seeing like my video flicker even. That is weird. Also my fans are, woo, they're going. Oh, my fan utility isn't running. Curious. I think something crashed with it. I mean, I didn't notice it crash. Here we. I've got an Asus card and an Asus motherboard. Asus. I mean, all the sensors seem to be working. But like the drivers, they leave something left to be desired. We'll put it that way. They've got the like Armory Crate firmware software thing that all of these hardware companies seem to do now. It just does not quite work. Like you can set all the RGB and everything through it. It like constantly breaks, and my RGB just goes back to like the rainbow. Yeah, and the dist file, it removes all the pictures. You're using a lot of images. Even if you directly copy all of them in dist, it deletes them when you build. That might be something with your build setup. That would be the first thing I would check. Because if you're saying Tauri bundle in this whole dist directory, this whole thing should come, including all the SVG and whatnot. So if you, they're separate processes. When you run the npm run Tauri dev or equivalent, you're effectively running this command. In my case, this is running an npm run build. You can run that separate. Whatever command that is, if you run that separate and you're not seeing those images show up in whatever your distr directory is, that's likely where the issue is. That would be my presumption. So if we would run just the npm run build, we can see in this case we're including the SVGs in here. We don't actually need them in here, and I could probably just, actually I'm just gonna go ahead and delete them now before I forget. this build setup pulls in the full public directory. So we get both index.html and colors.html. So when we are specifically going into, and this actually kind of rolls into the topic at hand. We are specifically saying, bring this thing in. This is like a standalone HTML file, completely unrelated to like our main app. But related in that we are able to use our main app to open up a new window and set the web view window to a specific HTML file. So that HTML file that we brought in through that dist directory, we can then open up a window using that HTML file. So that would be where I would look first. Make sure if you're just running the like pure build command without anything Tauri related, do your pictures show up in that directory? And if they don't, then it's likely unrelated to anything Tauri specific and more of a, whatever build setup you're using. So Vite or Webpack or what have you. Hopefully that helps. But the reason that it is potentially applicable to the topic at hand, we are here opening up this HTML file. That HTML file has a specific bit of content, and we're going to potentially come back to this. But that, like, part of the content is like the head. If we want to enable something like CSS gradients, I think you kind of have to do that in either a style tag or in like a CSS file. I don't think you can do that in line. And the reason it's sort of on topic is if we're using Lightning CSS to create a CSS file, like that would be one potential use case. If we use Lightning CSS to create a CSS file, is that going to work as something that we can run at runtime instead of running at build time? Because we want to, based on a user's input, sort of like dynamically create a chunk of CSS. If we can't create a CSS file because we're then effectively modifying the bundle, which is kind of breaks outside of the, potentially breaks outside of like the use case of, like bundling up an app. The apps can like create files on the file system, but they sort of need to do it in their own directory. And are we going to be served well with creating a whole bunch of CSS files every time you open up a window? Like that sort of IO, I suspect is going to be, I don't know if the performance will be noticeable, but I suspect that will be less performant than if we try to do it like in memory or inline. In which case, I'm curious if we could dynamically in some way create a style tag, or take, instead of doing something like document.body.style background color, can we set a specific chunk of CSS? Like a style tag. Because if we can set a specific chunk of CSS, we could take some input, pipe it through Lightning CSS, do any like escaping or like dealing with edge cases through Lightning CSS, and then drop it into style tag. That might work. That might actually work well. In which case we could do something like, here we've got style. Like we could do class equals window, and then if we in the head do style, we could do something like this. Oop. Now, are we able to, I'll have to look at the browser APIs and what have you, but are we able to like take some text input somehow, potentially through the like when we open up the HTML or give it the URL to open it up, if we're able to dump this into a parameter, is there going to be enough context there that we'd be able to like change or mutate this window class? I think that's the bit that we're going to want to look into today. All right, so Lightning CSS. Lightning CSS. It is a I mean, they've got a bunch of like unification. Talk about using modern CSS features, in which case we can then do transpilation. I guess I don't specifically say here, but you can like target specific browsers, which is useful because within a Tauri app we have potentially more than one browser target. And it uses a CSS parser, which is used by Firefox. So we might hit potential edge cases because not all parsers are exactly the same. But I think for our use case of like mostly just around colors, and if we would like look at the playground a little bit, you can kind of see that it ends up basically just giving me this like minified chunk. I don't think we're gonna need to use any of the features or anything real deep here. But what we want to do, look at the docs. I want to do something like this. Now, it's not clear to me, like it takes a file name. It's not clear to me if we run this, is it actually going to create a file? They do specifically say in browser, in which case they have a WASM build, but it still takes a file name. So I think that's going to be kind of the TBD thing. So if we want to change the style tag via if we want to change the style tag via the I forgot to rerun this, via like parameters, are we able to do that? Like, is that a MDN inline styles? So like what we're using right now is sort of a naive approach where we're using JavaScript to specifically change the document.body.style. Let's see if we can like edit this. I think we're gonna have to do it with JavaScript because on load we're gonna need to get the parameters. So there's two use cases. There's the we're listening for color change events. So that would be the use case of when you click create, it is going to open up a window. There. Oh, weird. I think we broke the transparency. And it doesn't move. No. So we definitely broke some things. What Tauri drag region. Oh, okay, so the body is way smaller. I need to drag up on the top. Probably because I changed. I'm assuming because I changed this a little bit. Class window. So if we let's undo this, because I think the thing that I really care about here is the background color. All of this is going to generally be the same, at least for this current use case. Close, create. Yeah, something was wonky with that. Okay, so that fixed that. There's still something wonky with the colors. Hey John, good to see you. Did the 3D thing work? I was not paying attention. It looks like it came through. Yeah, it looks like it came through. Did it work? I was not paying attention. Yeah, so I'm not sure what's going on there. Why it's not showing. It's like it's not showing the color immediately, which is a little bit weird. Oh, yeah, because of that. So it's like it's not applying these immediately off the bat. If we do the class. Interesting. I wonder if is it because we're doing. Let's make a div. Make the div the whole thing. Yeah, so if you type exclamation mark 3D, it should allow you to do any text. I think if you type 3D, I don't know if it actually. I thought I had a default. It is entirely possible that it's just not working though. So the drop worked. And you can do drops. Say chair. I'll do like filtering on specific entities. I don't think the 3D text is working though. That would be in, let's see. Did I have that in alerts? It might be in yeah, the alerts are broken. I really need to like spend a little time and kind of deal with all the little inconsistencies and whatnot that I've like, you know, it's like the legacy apps. They all work when you first put them in place, and then if you don't have a good way to continue to maintain them, then the things just like slowly degrade. I don't remember what I put that under, to be honest. I think it's in the prod overlay. Oh, prod alerts. Okay. I think it's this. I don't think it doesn't seem like it's working right now. Interact. Is it Hey, there we go. Okay. It's weird that it didn't connect immediately. So it was throwing an error. Interesting. That should work now though. WebSockets, right? So speaking of WebSockets, this should work now if you do exclamation. This is running and supposedly connected. If you do exclamation mark hide, you get windows that just pop up, which is kind of fun. And if we create one manually, it's showing up, and we can drag it around. You can actually see the scroll bar, which is awkward. But you don't. We're gonna have to do some reset stuff now, aren't we? Yeah, okay, so we need to set, so body has a margin. So if we say style, margin, 0 pixels. I don't know if I need to reset that. I imagine I'm not going to need to reset this. So we're actually going to move that up to the body. And this will only, actually, can we do a reload? No. Maybe. Might have actually worked. Okay, there we go. Okay. So it's still not setting the color immediately when it opens. So if we click create, it doesn't show up because there's no color. Because the color is part of the style tag. So that's also an issue. It's not, when it first opens up, for some reason it's not respecting the class. I don't think this matters, but move this to the end. More for organization reasons than anything. Yeah, so let's see. What are we complaining about here? Yeah, okay, fine, whatever. So, two things. If we can change the class, or the style attached to a specific class on the fly somehow, that'll work. Ish. And the reason I say ish is because it doesn't actually work until I change the color, which is weird. Well, I guess not weird, because we're using, anytime we change the color, we are modifying this value. When we click this button and it creates a window, that window by default does not open up as always on top, so you can go behind things, and it also does not open with any specific color. There's no initial color. I'm just gonna take that off because we don't need the initial color. So it only ends up being set via this. So for some reason the class isn't actually working. Is it like a window? We're just gonna say redacted. I wonder if there's like a weird clash here or something. Nope. This window is sort of a, there's a window object. So for some reason those style tags are not actually loading. I mean, I think that's right? Oh. Yep. We needed to make it a class. We needed the dot in front of it to make it a class. CSS things. you know, when you're using all these utility libraries like Tailwind or whatever, you forget the little things, like putting a period in front of a thing that's supposed to be a class in your style tag. Okay, so that's working. Can we edit or can we adjust the style tag on the fly through JavaScript? That's the thing that I don't know offhand. I haven't actually tried to do that, to be honest. Yeah. Oh, it's funny. You know, like streamer brain. It's like you haven't had your caffeine intake for the day if that's your speed or other equivalents, but like those like things that you know, but you just overlook in the moment. All right, can we? So this one has 2 style elements. I'm not keen on just dumping more and more in there. I think we could potentially do that. So later elements override earlier ones. We could potentially do that, but I don't know if I want to rely on that because if you change values, you're gonna have like 50 style tags, which is not ideal. MDN JavaScript overwrite style tag. So there's the style property. I don't know if this is modifying the style inline. So the thing that we're really curious about is, can we do MDN color gradient? We do color gradients, and can we do it in a way like are we able to enable this? So it's specifically a CSS function. So CSS functions, I'm presuming, only work in CSS. I believe they also work in the style tag. So if we would do something like this as our default. Oh, that did it not copy? It didn't copy. So if we do something like that, and now we have a different default, that works. So we can do it in the style tag. So if we're able to like edit the style tag on the fly, or otherwise through JavaScript change a style tag, that would be sufficient. And obviously, the more options or the more robust ability we give to edit these things on the fly, the more we need to like consider escaping, especially since we're taking input from like the internet. So something to think about. Using dynamic styling information. So here we're doing, oh, interesting. I think what's happening here though is that we're mutating it, which let's try that out. So instead of changing the document.body.style.background color, if we say style sheet, And then we do something like this. I think this is still going to work. This is specifically setting the background color. We are honing in on a specific part of the style sheet though. So if we do this, okay, we're going to create a window. We've got our linear gradient. We are now logging out the CSS style sheet. Now, if we change the color, okay, so it's not changing that, which is fine. Interesting. Okay, so what's this? What does the CSS style sheet look like? We've got CSS rules. So rule 0 would be our CSS. Okay, so our first CSS rule is this. So if we're looking at CSS rules, bump this size up on this a little bit. We're looking at the style sheet CSS rules 0. So this is list 0. Okay, yeah. So it's the first entry in the style sheet. Property list in the first rule in the list, which should be fine. And this is the actual text and then the style. So what we're changing is the style background color. And right now this has a handful of things defining it. We may want to we may need to do something to actually enable the like linear gradient part of it. But if we change back to background color, because here we're setting background color, and this doesn't at the current time have a background color. Let's go ahead and close that one. We'll reopen it, and if we now edit it, okay, so it's working. This should be changing this style sheet on the fly. If we go into the head and style, I don't know if this is actually going to change. Or, well, it doesn't look like it's going to actually change here. But supposedly we're changing the style sheet on the fly. So if we would do... We'll have to think about it a little bit. Because this might end up needing to be an object. So depending on what we get out of Lightning CSS, we might need to deal with some conversion like string to object back and forth type of thing. I'm wondering what happens if we change the property here. So if we say this is doing style, and we're specifically changing, in this case, background color, and we're setting the background color here. If we say just background, I think that would still work because I think it's going to use the shorthand syntax, and I think the first entry is actually again, we're not actually like mutating the DOM per se here, but I think that is going to be, we're connected. If we would do something like exclamation mark hide and a linear gradient. Let's see what happens. We got a window. It opened up a window and then disappeared. So it still doesn't quite like that, which is fine. Style background, initial color. Okay. So I'm gonna close that because we don't want that one open. That like phantom one or zombie one opens up if like we haven't done error handling well yet. So if we hit some error that we can't parse well, effectively end up calling create window on with like empty parameters, and those empty parameters end up just opening up a new like version of the app effectively. So this all still works. Close. Let's make sure we didn't break anything. If we do hide orange, this should open up. I mean, it doesn't really look orange, but like that's still working. And like this might be, the issue might be that we're setting initial color to a string. And if this needs to actually be like an object, or something special because it's a CSS function, that might be the reason that it's not working. Because linear gradient is a CSS function. And this might be where we want to start pulling in Lightning CSS and playing around with it. So, because I think we're mostly there, and if we can get Lightning CSS to spit out basically like a minified text or something that we can dump into this initial color, that might be sufficient. TBD on the whole fine length thing, but let's go ahead and pull in Lightning CSS. I think what we're gonna do, we can use it both from Rust or from JavaScript. I think in this case, I'm going to use it from JavaScript on the browser side of things, because that way we kind of have one mostly unified API going through the same like pipeline. If we click create or we get an event in through WebSockets, we should get the same. You know, like the API service and the same pipeline is going to be the same. There's a lot of very samesies. If we take a peek at the code, effectively what we're doing is we're listening to last messaging during calling create window. So if we are piping everything through this create window, I think that's going to end up being easier. If we would do it in Rust, that would work for our WebSockets implementation. We could theoretically do all the WebSockets parts all on the Rust side of things. And then have, in the case of a WebSocket, we would do Rust to browser web view. And we could do both. We could pipe information here to update this value here. And we could also pipe information to update any values within here, which would work. But from the perspective of you clicking on a button here, now we need to go out to Rust. I guess that still would work. We would go out to Rust, have Rust do the things, and then send back a value here. So it would still work. And again, I think that's what's interesting about this library. We have the option. We could do it in the browser. I mean, we don't have Node available, but we could do it in Node, or we could do it with a crate, which is kind of wild. Because like this is the bit that we end up wanting to basically do. We're gonna try the browser. We're gonna try the browser first. Yeah. Or do we try to rewrite some of it? I mean, we still need to take input. We'd pipe it back to Rust, and then we'd have to move around a lot. I honestly feel like Rust, doing it in Rust would be the more robust implementation. But we'd have to change a bunch about how we're like structuring things in the pipeline. And I don't think I want to deal with that right now. But I don't think either way, if we're not specifically locked into either way. Setting it up and getting the pipeline working means that at least we can ship something, and this wouldn't be a big deal to refactor either way, I don't think. So we can kind of like split out those two pieces if we want to, because we need to do like a front end versus, you know, like a browser embedded web view implementation versus Rust side of things. We'd have to refactor a bunch anyways. That's sort of outside of this, like implementing this specific thing. So I think we're gonna try that. I'm presuming that this is also available on like npm. Yeah, okay. So if we do, so I gotta do npm add. It looks like we can just use the Wasm implementation directly. And I guess we're gonna do it here. And like this lightning CSS, I think is going to allow us to remove this too. So we'll be able to do, I'm presuming we're going to be able to clean things up a little bit here. Let's go ahead and close this. We're effectively going to be doing something like this. So there's an await init. I assume that has something to do with mount. I think I'm gonna leave it at the top of the file as like a global thing. So just when this file is loaded, you end up getting the init, and I'm presuming I want that init to stick around. Otherwise, we could dump it into like a use effect or something that when this component mounts, initialize. Otherwise, when this component unmounts, you know, tear down that code. I don't think we want that tear down, which is why I'm gonna just put it at the top of the file here. So this transform, I guess we kind of want it in the create window, right? So I'm gonna just go ahead and move it down there. It looks or appears to be synchronous, which is interesting. And here we are doing a class that is .redacted. So what we can do when we're doing this or setting this, we don't need to do stylesheet.css rules 0.style. I think we can basically just do this. We're going to give it Maybe. We might want to look at the APIs. But let's get this working first. So if we call transform, we're gonna get code and map. We also have a file name. I have no idea if it's gonna like create that or anything. So if we do npm run Tauri dev, let's see what we get. Wait for that to open. Yeah, I'm getting an encoding overloaded. I've never seen it before, and only thing I've added is only thing I've changed is just like updating OBS. And I don't think I can change any of this on the fly. Oh, I can change the bitrate on the fly. Okay, turned it down just a tad. This is so weird. I don't know. All right, connect. I don't know why it's very hitchy right now. I think it's gonna be one of those things that is fixed with a restart. I'm also gonna update my BIOS again, and I think that might help. The AMD plus Asus. I think it's mostly on AMD, but partly on Asus. Their like driver package for the CPU has just been rough. Most other CPUs that I've installed, I've updated the BIOS like once, like when I install it basically. I think I've updated this one like 4 or 5 times now, just because of all the random issues that they've been adding to the fray. All right, so we should be logging out something now. If we do create, we're getting some code. It is specifically a string. It is called when. Okay. Are we getting? I assume we're not getting any like file creation event. Yeah, it doesn't. I mean, I'd assume that you'd have to call something to write it. It just feels weird that you need to specify a file name. Like, what if I take this out? Does it work? I'd presume that the main use case here is going to be airboarded. I'm presuming the main use case is writing a file. Window creation, line 12. What if we take the in and it out? Clear, close, refresh, connect, create. So we need to do the init. I'm actually all right, we'll try it. If you do a use effect function I don't see any specific cleanup. If you do an empty dependency array, it should only run on mount. Yeah, still getting it not found. A little bit weird. We might want to come back to that. But for the time being, I think it's fine. That playlist was really short. What do we got? Let's do some chiptunes. Okay. Let's put a comment here. Getting we'll say getting 404 to JS.jsDloader.net for fs. I think fs slash use text encoder and text to convert code from a string to a typed array and back. Oh. So we're locking out this bit. We might be getting basically like a style sheet thing back. I don't particularly care about the minify. I think I'm just gonna take that off for right now. So if we do a console dot, well, yeah, let's put it in here. Code. We don't care about the map right now, or I guess ever really. If we look at transform, I wanna. Oh, that's the issue. That's why we're not getting the. Okay. We installed Lightning CSS WASM. Which is using Nappy WASM. And okay, I'm guessing if we run dev again, we're gonna get the exact same error. Maybe, we'll see. Yep, okay. So this is happening because Lightning CSS WASM big int literals are not available in the configured target environment. So it's expecting a target environment of this. We are on something that Nappy thinks it can't handle, but I don't. I think it's because it's the web view. Like, it's a web view issue and it's not specifically an issue with the implementation. Now, if we take off the init, I'm presuming that's going to mean that we end up not having the transform function available. Do we get anything as far as... Yeah, it really doesn't like that. Bundling, import bundle. Okay, this specifically requires file system access. Ah, okay. That makes sense. Because it's expecting you to, or allowing you to use import rules. Source maps. Within Vite with Webpack from Dino or the browser. So Lightning CSS WASM can be used in Dino or directly in browsers. And this is throwing because it thinks we're in an environment that it can't handle. If we look at Lightning CSS WASM, and I am still getting encoding errors. This is wild. Why? I'm gonna have to just restart my computer after this stream, I think. I can feel the little hitches and stuff too. There's clearly something unrelated to the actual compute or GPU directly. And it says that the encoding is overloaded, but my performance graph definitely does not show it is, so something funky is going on. Updates will happen. So how do we deal with this? I guess if we just do, let's just try doing Lightning CSS directly. Before I was importing it from like a web endpoint, which seemed to be working, but so I'm guessing, yep, Lightning CSS is still npmi. The WASM build and Lightning CSS directly are the same package. So I don't know if this is going to use WASM. And I don't know what the publish scheme is like. Yeah, okay. This was the bit that I was expecting. It is running using this lib is expecting a package, which is sort of a node thing. Yeah. All right. So we need to use that WASM build specifically. The init, what does the init take? Let's go to the code. I wasn't expecting to go to the code this quickly on this. Where there's the GitHub link. Do we have any init was a module only once in browsers? So, okay, nappy wasm. Init takes an input. Environment. So I'm presuming this init is what we're calling. If input, use the input, otherwise do the thing. Okay. So if we specify an input, and if it ends up being a string, it fetches it. If it's a request, then it does some fetching there. Init promise. Okay. So it loads it and then it uses that instance to determine the environment. And environment is coming from NappyWasm. So I guess we look at NappyWasm. This like might be the thing that just makes me try the Rust side of things out, because okay, so this isn't specifically put out by Nappy. So it's doing some like testing, I guess. Some testing to see if it's kind of a big file. To check the environment, which I appreciate. It's just this specific implementation I don't think is taking into account web view stuff, and I'm not seeing okay. So what errors are we getting? Big end literals are not available in the configured Tauri environment. Okay, so it's actually throwing and saying that big ends are not available. Okay. I think we try the crate. I don't think we have much of a choice, to be honest. We've got some phantom processes floating around here. Okay. I don't think we have much of a choice, because if we want to do it in the browser, it needs to use WASM, and if supposedly our browser implementation doesn't have big ints, it's just straight up not going to work. But if we loaded it from here, it was working. Which is why I'm wondering if it's an implementation issue with the environment and NappyWasm code. I guess I'm fine doing it in Rust. Do we try to refactor all of this though? Been going for a little bit over an hour. When somebody clicks create window, we take some information and actually create the new web view window. And we're creating the web view window from JavaScript. And then what we're doing is, if somebody modifies things on the fly, we are changing. We're calling set window color. So set window color would need to go out to Rust to do some things and come back. So there would be multiple use cases where we would need to reach out to Rust side of things, get a value and change it and come back. Here we're doing an emit, in which case we are already doing communication through the Rust side of things to the other window. If we would send off values to Rust to React, that's confusing. we would send values off to the Rust side of things to take action on that event. We are still piping values out to the other web view regardless. But we'd also have to pipe it back to this one to respond to that color change. And it's kind of nice doing this directly in the browser. But if we need to, if we don't have an option, if we need to deal with this WADS and build any, like regardless, we can make it work on the Rust side of things. I don't think it's a technical limitation issue, but I would prefer that we would have the changing the color of the existing browser in the browser that's doing it. Like I would like to see this change immediately. We would have to move a lot of stuff around. It would kind of clean up this though. It would clean up this, but then we need to, we would need to have another listening event here. So rather than us setting the window color here, well, we'd set the window color, then we just need to emit back and listen here. Ugh, it's gonna be a lot. Let's try this for now. And we might want to just come back to and refactor. Because I just don't know that I'm up to like dealing with this on stream. We're still gonna get that error. And I kind of want to remove this before I forget about it. So this will mean that we're going to, I didn't actually do an install, but this should be pulling directly from esm.run. And we're gonna get that, which is fine. So here we, oh, okay, so we do actually get a buffer. So if we want the actual like code that's coming out of it, then we need to do that. What other, like what's the API surface look like? When we call transform, what is returned? Examples? Okay, so this is Rust. Those are Rust examples. So we've got a bunch of CSS with tests. It's testing different, so like they're testing for the linear gradient, which is pretty cool. I don't even know where I would look. I guess. So there should be. I mean, I'm imagining that node is going to be very similar to. So a lot of this is mapping. I'm presuming, well, I guess maybe not. What is it like them? Lib transformer into JS. we get, okay, so object set name property code, export references, dependencies, warnings, and map. Okay, so this is basically going to be what's returned from that transform function. So if we do this, we should get a map. We should get a exports, references, dependencies, and warnings. Take out code. Ooh. So exports is reserved as oop. It's not gonna like that. Okay, I don't really care about the exports. Some of these other bits might actually be useful though. So let's go ahead and see what that gives us. Lots of nulls. And then, so warnings is an empty array, and then we get the code. Interesting. So map references, dependencies, warnings. I guess that makes sense because we don't have any of that in the actual code. Okay. So if we gave it something that had a warning, I don't know that it's actually gonna even parse. Unexpected end of input. So if we've got some code in there that's just no bueno, it's gonna throw a hard error. So we might need to deal with that. That's fine, I think. So if we get, well, now we have code as text. So if we are we need to do something with that now. So I need to convert this into something that we can apply both to this window and to this interior piece here. So we've got these two pieces here. This I think is going to be easier because we can edit the style tag. If we go to MDN, we are so CSS style sheet. Those are read only. Insert rule. So we can insert a new rule with a specified position in the style sheet. Okay, so there's a replace. Asynchronously replaces the content of the style sheet in terms of promise. So we could say we are going to straight up replace. Okay. And it is a string. So if we end up if we go like this and say create window, we're gonna have code const CSS string equals this. And if we then, we're not going to pass it in here yet. We need to deal with that. Actually, no, we can do that. So CSS string, we're going to say, we're going to pipe it in here. So it's going to completely replace it for the moment, which is fine. Actually, let's just replace this whole thing so we can just click the button. Yes, no, there's multiple. We're going to do this, and we're going to do this. And we're going to say this. Just take the CSS string and use it directly. Okay. So now, when we close this and click create, I'm guessing it's going to be black because we've like broken the, oh no, it's still working-ish. Emit still works. But when we click create, it's going to black. So it's not using our CSS string yet though, which is fine. But is it, you can see up at the top, it's getting like our CSS. It's a little bit small, but that, what we've passed it is stringified. So if we then go into colors.html, we effectively want to replace this. So if we're getting a color, so if there is a color, we're setting that initial color. And I'm guessing that's basically throwing an error. If we look here, this doesn't say anything specifically. It might just swallow it. But if we do, instead of saying const initial, console dialog, initial color, we should be getting the initial color there. Yeah, so we get that text as our initial color. So we have a style sheet. It is the first style sheet in the list. So in this case, it's just this. And we're saying the CSS rules we want to, instead of, on that CSS style sheet, instead of like doing anything with these rules, we want to instead call dot replace, and we can do the initial color. Now this should happen asynchronously. And we don't have, this might be a gotcha that we run into. It can only be used on a style sheet created with the CSS style constructor, which we didn't do. But there's a replace sync. To just see if this works, I'm going to not do it asynchronously, and I'm going to deal with it synchronously. We do create, inspect, okay, failed to execute. Can't call replace sync on a non-constructed CSS style sheet. So as suspected, that's not gonna work. Okay, so add rule is deprecated. So what's the expectation here? So CSS rules, do we have a live updating CSS rule list containing each of the CSS rules? So it's not a proper array, you can't use for each, sure. So what is our other options?
I'm specifically looking for a method because we have a string and I want to feed it a string. A CSS rule is going to be one of these, and it's it's not actually like the CSS text. This is, yeah, so like there is a property on there called CSS text, which it's a textual representation of the rule, which is what we have. We want to use a method that creates this for us. So can we is there anything on the style sheet? So rather than like looking at the rule directly, we are working with document.stylesheets. So we could potentially replace the whole style sheet. Like we could do that. In which case, like, this is sort of not needed. So what does that look like actually? If we do document.stylesheets, if we take out this and we say so we'll call the first one style sheet. I mean, it's a const, so that's not really gonna work, is it? If we do this, say equals new. This is getting into a whole bunch of like CSS stuff that I haven't done before. Does that work? If we do a refresh, okay. Okay, so it's undefined. Interesting. Yeah, back to vanilla.js. I mean, this isn't even like vanilla.js. We're like in CSS, like DOM CSS stuff. Internal style sheets. So yeah, CSS, which is like, I'm aware of it. That is by far as I've dived into this. Okay, so CSS style sheet, a single CSS style sheet. So if we say, okay, how do we, here, constructor. Okay, that's what we were just looking at. New CSS style sheet. Okay, so a new CSS style. I guess if we just construct it, CSOM. Is that how you say it? I guess that makes sense. See, we want to specifically like replace. So is there like a, what if we just log out document.stylesheets? Is there a method to like replace a style sheet? We'll just go to the document. And on here, there should be style sheets. Style sheets is a read-only property and returns a style sheet list of style sheet objects. Okay. Well, so how do we change that? Adopted style sheets. The same constructed child's can be shared with one or more. Okay, a constructed style sheet is a style sheet created programmatically using the style sheet constructor. Okay, that seems to be what we want. Okay. Let's grab this. This seems to be in the vein of what we're trying to accomplish here. We are using the constructor method to create a new style sheet. We are then calling that replace sync that we looked at before, which in our case would actually be initial color, or it's going to be like this basically. So we can go like that, and we can say, let's get rid of this little bit here. And something like that is going to be our default. And then we're replacing, so in this case, we don't have any style sheets, I believe. And we are calling replace sync and adopting it effectively. So then we can get rid of this and this and this. And this, and what we want to do is if there's an initial color, we're going to say I kind of prefer style sheet. Let's do our default. Okay. So we don't start off with a style sheet. We have a div with a class, which has some like default styles in there, including the body, which is doing some resetting, so we don't have a margin around it. Then we get the initial color. If there's an initial color set, then we're just going to use that directly. Otherwise, we're going to use a default, and that's going to always replace the style sheet. So then if we change the color, we want to say, now that we've created that style sheet using this constructor, it's in scope. So via a closure, we can basically do the same thing here. And it'll be something like this. That's not going to work yet, because this event is still passing through a color of a different structure, I think. I can't remember if we actually changed it or not, to be honest. So now if we create, did we get a window? I think we got a window. No, I don't know where it is. So something is not working. Let's go ahead and say, this is the downside of transparency. If you goof up your, oh, we want to adopt the style sheet. Okay, so that was the bit I'm guessing that we were missing. There you go. Okay, so it's black right now. If we then do this and this, we are piping through an initial color as a default, so we should see red. No, still something wonky with that. That's fine. Let's go back to this so we can actually see our console.log. Oh, yeah, we got one right there. Ha. Keeps sticking to my cursor. I click and it sticks. It's like encoding lag, whatever the deal is there. So we're getting the text. I don't know if it. Okay. That could be it here. We are saying color. So it's just going to change the text color. It's not actually changing the background color. So over here, we want to say background color, not just color. I bet you that's our issue here. So if we click this, we're going to just look at a background. And it's now background color red. So if we take off this and we do style sheet replace sync, what we're doing is we are in the script tag on a specific index or a specific HTML file that's being loaded as a new window within Tauri. We're creating a style sheet, and based on the URL parameters, when we open this HTML file, we're going to replace that style sheet that we've created via the constructor, and then use the document.adopted style sheets to set it as one of the style sheets within the DOM. This should then give us a style sheet that looks in the vein of this, but we could create programmatically. And that would mean that our window color is red. Look at that. Sweet. So now, if we change the color here, this is still working because we're changing the CSS rule itself. You could see when we first create it, it's red, right? Now if we change the transparency, it immediately goes to black, because our default is still black. Like, we're not dealing with it, we're only dealing with it in the window. So the value here is still black, which is fine. We just need to then deal with it in multiple places. So we get a CSS string. We can set this to be, we're gonna leave it at red. I want to make it black eventually, but we're gonna leave it at red because I want to be able to see that everything else has been updated as expected. So here we're setting the CSS string. That works. I'm gonna go like this, and what we're now going to do is say options.color is going to be background. We are at the moment not going to deal with any escaping. We will need to. So this should give us a CSS string, and it's going to be just setting the background. So if we get this working, you'd be able to theoretically set any CSS as a string. Potentially you'd have to write it minified because spaces are going to matter. You'd have to write it as like a minified CSS string, but anything background. So theoretically you could even like pass URL. So that would be like where the escaping would come in, because we would want to make sure that somebody couldn't basically open up an image freely. So any URL, we're gonna need to kind of just nix that. So this should give us the CSS string, and now we're passing it in. CSS string. Now we're passing it in here. So this is going to set the actual like URL and the thing that it's opening. Now our color for our window is still not correct. So we're gonna have to deal with that. And I think that's the bit that's gonna be interesting. Because Lightning CSS is giving us a string, which works for this specific use case. We have options within React, or I guess technically Preact. We're using Preact. We have options within Preact to style elements. We can use sort of the typical CSS, or we can do like inline styles and a host of other things. Like you can interact with this whole thing via JavaScript. So in our specific case, we're setting a style tag, which is an object. Can that take a string? I think a style is only an object. Can we look at the Preact style prop maybe? I'm pretty sure that only takes a object. That's an object. API reference, let's see, component. To child array, external DOM mutations, interesting. So this is it's using the class component pattern, and it is mutating the DOM. I don't know that we want to go down that route. I mean, it's basically on the component. Functional components, class components. So class components have these lifecycle methods as part of it. Let me just search for style. CSS custom properties. So it's still an object. I'm not seeing anything. Hooks, component, fragments. CSS string. I mean, I think theoretically we could use the create element because we're doing. I guess that still takes a style. Okay. Say maybe we'll just say React because I suspect we'll get better results for that. If we say React, inline style through string. With plain CSS string. So we can use a ref and do a set attribute style. Because the other part is if we have a full CSS string, that's going to include the class. So it is almost just in the same vein of editing a style sheet. It would be fine to edit the style sheet the same as if we're doing it in like the separate window vanilla JS style. I think we can make that work. But it would be difficult to deal with because we're gonna have multiple windows represented in this. Like it's a map. It's a list of windows. So each one of these would need its own like style, which is going to be a lot. I mean, we could theoretically And I don't see any other like within Lightning CSS, it is giving us just the stringified code. So there's not too much to go. We are gonna actually see minify here though. Minify true, I think it was. And this. Why do you not like that? There's a comma here. Oh. Oh. What the heck? What did I do? Oh. There we go. Yep. I need to fix the posture. Posture warning. I can tell when my posture is poor when I'm like sitting funky, and then I go to type. Then my hands are just all over the place because I'm not respecting proper posture. So we just have a string. I mean, I think the only way we can really deal with this is like if we look at I mean, all of these are going to create a style sheet that are either going to inline it or they're going to create a separate file. It would be kind of annoying to just spin off a whole ton of style sheets. We could potentially do that. We could on mount create a style sheet. We could create a style sheet per window. Or on window creation, we could create a style sheet per window. In the DOM. Very, very much in the same vein of what we were doing. But I mean, do we do this? I guess we could just do the ref set attribute style. I really do not like it, but in all honesty, that might be the easiest way to do it. So anytime we change the window color, we need to deal with it when we set the window color. Well, no, this is going to emit. This is going to emit a color change. When we emit a color change, it's going to change it in the other window. But we're also saving it in the state. So this is what we would need to change. So in our color window, we would need to like mutate the DOM anytime anything changes. Not a huge fan of that. we do this? Do we do the style sheet thing? I mean, the alternative is that what we're doing is we're expecting. Maybe maybe this is the way to think about it. We are this. No, this. Let's see. We are expecting input. Let's respect the scope that we're considering here. Where did that go? This is our string. I mean, in reality, it like if we quasi minify it directly here, like it's gonna be something like this. When we run it through here, we're taking this and saying, hey, do your CSS like magic on it. But really all we care about is like this little bit here. If we're expecting background to always be the base or the shorthand property version, we could effectively say, we know this is a string. We know the string begins with this and it's going to be minified. If we remove this and the last value in that string, we should have a shorthand property that we could pass to background here. Here, let's do this. So instead of the CSS going over between the two, send all of the JS and CSS so that the window has no inline JS. So you're saying like send this whole chunk. So the bit that's we're running into is we were previously dealing with only like a hex code or a string that represented specifically just like a background color. But that approach is inherently limited because you don't have the full description or the full like descriptive ability that you have like with CSUM. CSUM allows you to call like CSS functions, like calc or linear gradient. We can't do the calc or linear gradient if we are just specifying it via a string. I guess that's a question of how I was actually thinking about implementing it. So anyways, we'll finish this explanation. So we want to be able to create a style sheet in the DOM somehow based off of input, because then that allows us to have the full ability to style this via the CSUM. I'm calling it CSUM now. Let's hope that's right. And that works for the situation where we're creating a window and we have this separate window. It works because we are creating a new style sheet, and this is sort of a one-to-one. This window has a single style sheet that we've defined. We've defined it via the transform function that's coming from Lightning CSS. So we've basically said this is going to be our style sheet. Do your thing, return it as a string, and we're going to set the style sheet in this window to equal that. That works fine. And that can also work fine when we're modifying the color. We'll just have to update this color, or we'll just have to update this code a little bit. But it doesn't work for this bit, because this bit has potentially more than... this is pre-act, 1, and 2, it has potentially more than one style sheet. The style sheet issue could be dealt with by just spinning off multiple style sheets. But then as we open and close windows here, we need to potentially remove those style sheets that have been created. So we could do something in the vein of like, like emotion or style components, where we're on the fly creating a new class and a new style sheet. And that would work. But then we need to worry about cleaning up after ourselves. So we'd have to go in and potentially delete or remove that style sheet. And that's a lot. The alternative that I was looking at was saying, if we have this string, we know that the first part of it, I can't think of any case that the first part of it is not going to equal this. And we know that there's going to be a closing bracket. So we're allowing people only to modify this background property. So if that's the case, if we just take this string, I think we can do something like style is going to be background, and it's literally just going to be background. Set it to the string. Not going to worry about alpha or anything like that, because we're going to deal with it further up the chain of colors. So then we are allowing the user to input a value in some way, tossing it through Lightning CSS, getting a string, and now we're just setting the string here, and we're setting the string over there. So we're setting the string for this value and setting the string for this value. I think that'll work. I don't know if this is going to work with the functions though. That's the only thing that I'm not 100% certain on. So let's see if we can test that real quick just to make sure. So here we're saying options.color. Do the thing. Otherwise default to this. So if we have an options.color, use it directly. In which case we want to say, do we still have any gradient hanging around here? No. Okay. I copy. When we create a window, we are expecting options. So if we get this creates a window either via message or when you click the button. When you click the button, we don't have a color defined, so it's defaulting to this. So if we would do this, not that. What? Did I copy? This. There we go. So if we give it a CSS function as a string here, I think this is going to tell us if it works or not. So if we click create, it's clear. I don't know that that's going to work. So if we go ahead and look at our DOM, it's saying background color is RGBA. Oh wait, color container. Nope, not that. Button, this. Yep, div. I don't see any color in here. It's just getting it from the root. So when we're calling create window here, we're passing it this linear gradient. This linear gradient should be showing up here. We're getting the code, and we're setting the window. Okay, so we're setting the color to the full thing right now. Do I even need that? I don't think I need that. So we want to say options.color, and if we always specify it, the options, create window, color. Okay, I think we're always specifying color. So I think we can do this. And now, and I don't think we're going to worry about this. And actually this is going to be background now. We definitely missed some things. So we got label and background. So this is going to actually be what's saved in state. And now here we're recalling background and label. So we got label everywhere, but we didn't wire up or change the background there. Okay. I did not like that. It's entirely frozen. Let's kill it. Let's try running it again. Decode code. Okay, so this is actually gonna get like a full style sheet still. So if we say our background is actually gonna be replace. We're gonna replace this bit with nothing, and we're gonna say is it splice start. So we get back. Okay, no, we don't want the elements that were deleted. Actually, well, no. Oh, that'll get funky. We just want to remove. It's pop2. Removes the last element from the and returns it. Okay, I don't want that. So we basically just want to remove this like last closing. Splice pop. I feel like I'm just blanking on what all the string modifiers are now. MDN string modifiers. Ends with, includes, index. So we want to just remove that last. I mean, I guess I could do squiggly brackets. Let's do replace squiggly bracket. Dot replace closing squiggly bracket. That should be fine, right? And now what we'll do is we will right here just say log out color window. Let's make sure that we're setting that state correctly, and then create. Cannot read properties of undefined. Reading replaced. Okay. We are doing options.color. Options.color should be a string, I believe, or substring. Substring would be good. Forgot about substring, because that'll let us do. I guess we still have to get the length though. Or to the end of the string of, yeah. So we still have to pull it out as a separate constant or whatever. I think this will be fine. presuming we get the replace a slice like in Rust. Yeah. I think that's what I was trying to think of. But then we would still need to know the length of this bit, which is a little bit annoying. We're not getting an options.color though. Options, and we're gonna basically let's make sure we are in a good spot right now. Okay. Refresh. Create. Okay, we're getting a background. And we're getting a pointer event. Why am I logging that out? 50 options. So we are clicking nope, not that button. We are clicking create window. Create window is going to okay. Guess that makes sense. Yeah, okay. I see. I did it in the wrong spot. Let's grab this. Let's undo a bunch of this. Okay, wow. Undo. I don't remember what I said for my colors there. There we go. Okay, F. This is going to go away. So we got a pointer event here because create window is either when we click create or it's via an event. So this options.color makes sense. That it's undefined. So if we say const color equals options.color. So if it's a pointer event, we're going to check for it's .target .value, I think it is, right? Okay. I guess if we click the button, we're not going to have a default. So let's just say this is where our actual default's going to be. And then here, we're going to move this as a default. And if it's undefined, it's undefined. And we will pass undefined, in which case we'll catch it here. So this, then we can say pass here and there. So now color should always be defined. Our background is actually going to be CSS string.replace here. And now this is the thing we can modify as a linear gradient. Okay, so now our color should always be defined. Hey Tony, good to see you. If we got lucky, we have linear gradients. Nice. That's actually really sweet. I mean, if you change it, that's still not updating. So we still have some stuff to deal with. But it starts out correct. And that's valuable because we know that we can set this to be the background. So when we do background and we set just straight up a string, that should give us access to anything
including CSS functions that we would want to do with the background. So we are now doing color, and we're defaulting to the linear gradient and setting the color, and then pulling the color back out when we set the state here. And then we're also passing it to our web view. So our web view is getting the CSS string. It is setting it, that whole CSS string, as a style sheet in the other web view. Then background is using just a little bit of code to make the color. So we're getting this coming in correctly, but now all of a sudden this is not working. So we'll have to come back to that. You're working on AOC? Nice, Tony. Nice. I'm living vicariously through Chris. Chris Biscardi, if you're unaware, does a lot with Rust, and has a fair number of videos on the YouTubes on Rust, as well as does a workshop. I don't know, what do you call it? Platform. A platform where they publish workshops about Rust called Rust Adventure. And Chris is doing a whole AOC series. So since I don't want to be in your situation, because it would really irk me to be behind, and I'm busy with other things, I'm just watching his videos. Yeah, you can't watch until you're done with this. I think I've gotten through day one. I've watched day one, but I don't have I've got the queue of videos lined up, so it's now my washing dishes entertainment. It seems like it's a little bit more involved this year. I guess we're on day 12. That's about when people start dropping off anyways, right? Because it's some of those get into the can't really brute force it as much anymore. Okay, you're doing yours so far without any non-standard crates. Interesting. Okay, cool. All right. So we get the gradient here, which means we're setting, or we're dealing with this whole like style sheet function, CSS function issue here. But we're getting null here. Ah, okay. So we're not passing it in correctly. You're at least trying. Nice. I think that's a noble goal, if anything. All right, we are not properly passing it through here. So it's getting null. It is. Yeah, okay. So it's not even showing up there at all. We want to now always pass this, because it is going to. I think we just say we're always going to set it, and that's going to be easier to reason about. So now if we click this, hey, look at that, gradients. Now, if we change this, we're still not getting the updating. So that bit is now broken. So let's deal with that. We are passing through that CSS string. It's being set elsewhere. And then we're also setting that CSS string here. Remove is fine. So the set window color, I think, is where we're going to need to address things. Address the rest of this. So percent to hex. So this is the bit where we are doing color window, set color window. So set color window is an input on type range. Oh, wait. There's two inputs. We're either changing the range or the color or the range.
Can we in here? We can't set transparency here, right? Just wanted to make sure you didn't miss it. You still have to do the Rust piece. I think what we're going to do, I think it might make sense to do the Rust piece. I don't know that I'm going to do it in stream though, because we would have to shift around all, or at least we're definitely not doing it today. Maybe a future stream, or if somebody else is feeling like that's something that they want to like dig into, we would need to basically like shift some of this state and state setting up in the Rust side of things, which is gonna kind of be involved. So it's definitely not gonna be a thing we get to today. Short answer, yes, we would still have to do the Rust piece if we want to move stuff to Rust. But I think it appears to be effectively the same API. If we look at docs here, we're basically just getting like a style sheet. So I think it would pretty much be like the same setup. It would just be this function happens in Rust, and now we need to do a little bit more passing back and forth in some respects. For this view wouldn't specifically change, but this view would make sense to, instead of triggering and opening it from the web view, from this web view, instead I suspect we would have a command that opens this via Rust, rather than going through like the web view API. And that's the bit that I think it makes sense to do that either on future streams or if somebody else is feeling so inclined, because it would end up making sense to basically switch auto using that import to handling that on Rust. Because you basically, instead of triggering a window create or opening a window, you would say, here's some data, do your thing on the Rust side of things. So it would still be a command, and it would still use like emit and all that, but you'd fire off a thing, and then I would do Lightning CSS, open up a window, and then pass back information. And instead of us instead of doing this set windows, which dictates the state, we would instead have to basically set up a listener where like here we're emitting events, and this is holding the state and emitting events off. The change would be that we would need to set up a listener, probably like a use effect type thing, where when we get an event from the Rust side of things saying that there is a new window, we need to then pop it into the state here. So this would still technically hold the state, but it would be a little bit more indirect. Yeah, no worries. What do I like about Lightning CSS for this use case? So specifically for this use case, we can basically call an API and it handles some of those like browser specific type things. So if people pass us, or we get input that is incorrect CSS, we don't need to deal with it. We can kind of just say, hey, if there's any warnings, just no op. In general, Lightning CSS I think is interesting when you're working with color things in CSS in Tauri, because you have options. You have JavaScript or Rust as far as ways you can implement it. So if you're doing things with CSS in a way that doesn't fit into the normal like CSS type flow, like this use case, you can bring that the ability to parse things on the user side of, like, you
parse user input for CSS values, and we can handle that in Rust or in JavaScript, depending on what's most convenient. So we can kind of make the choice of like, this seems interesting. We know it seems to be performant. It has a basis of CSS in Firefox, so there's some expectation that it's going to work. And then we can make this decision to use this library without having to worry if we're going to implement it in the back end or the front end. So I think there's sort of like multiple layers there. In general, for Tauri specific situations, it's interesting because of the options. In this specific use case, the options is nice, but also is, you know, fun way to explore. And I didn't want to have to like deal with parsing and understanding input from, you know, anybody could do. You can do it. Like, it should partly work now. If you do !hide, anything that you can pass to background should theoretically work. Should theoretically work. So we're using this because then I don't need to make sure that it working happens. Like, this should just happen, and then we take whatever output it is and we dump it into style sheets. Does that make sense? I feel like it should be a simple explanation, but I'm making it more complicated than it needs to be. Is kind of what I feel like I'm doing. Okay, so when we click set windows, this is, yes it does, okay, great. When somebody's changing the color, what we're actually doing here is we're, in here, we're handling one versus the other input. And then we're combining it together to like set this color. That works, but now we don't have both of those inputs anymore. We could use also the other thing, kind of coming back to your question, John. We could use a library that handles like color inputs. So some sort of like functional library where we give it a color or an HSL, and it does those like conversions for us. So we give it multiple strings, and then it gives us a return string that would become the CSS, or like a library that is, you know, like color.rgb. You give it 4 ints or integers, and it gives you a string that represents a, you know, that's a hex value that represents that color. But we're not doing that. We're using the CSS lib so we can have access to these CSS functions, which is nice. But we're now missing out on the fact that we don't have a way to like do this color conversion yet, other than my hack together thing that we've got. This use case is not for user input. It is specifically only when you're clicking these buttons. So if we would go, if we go something like here, let's log out color window. I'm curious what our other options give. We've got a built-in browser color picker here. So if we create a new window and we go in here, let's inspect. Oh, come on over. If we inspect, and we move around here, we get a bunch of, see, we get the color attribute.
if we switch it to like HSL, it's still hex. So no matter what we go in here, it always ends up returning hex. And it's returning hex without a transparency. So we can say, we can kind of make this API twofold, because this is only going to be used if we're changing things via that color picker. The transparency is a little bit weird though, because if we click open and it is a linear gradient, if we change the transparency, we kind of want the transparency to be the only thing that changes. So let's double check to make sure. If we look at like the background color API, let's just look at background. Can we strictly only change like the hi kitty? Can we strictly only change the transparency? I don't think that's a background color transparent. No. So like if we create a thing with background color that has linear gradient, that linear gradient I believe can have some transparency to it. Let's actually check on that linear gradient. Let's do CSS. Oof. Linear gradient. Transparency. So we give it colors, and those colors, and those colors can have transparency. Hi. Yes, we all see you here. Oh, wow. Okay. This API is. I guess we can expect spaces, eh? We might need to do a little bit more as far as like how we parse things here, I think. So if somebody does like exclamation mark hide and then linear gradient, like we can't just split on the spaces, which is what we're doing right now. Yeah, so this is the other bit, like we can't transparent. So this is doing a linear gradient from the from transparency to misty rose. So it's transparent to this like rosy color. And then underneath it, it has a URL. Okay. So how the heck do we do, what do we do for that input then? If we do create, this is the linear gradient. If somebody would, oh hi, you're back. If somebody would just change this transparency, how do we handle that? Because this color picker is not descriptive enough. What's that color picker look like? Type color. What's the API? Can we input color, input type color? Change an input. Only simple colors without alpha channel are allowed. So we could do potentially a, this might be, this is not going to be a today thing, I don't think. but we could do an input that would have the ability to also let you set the colors, or like an input that would allow you to construct a more robust, like a GUI to create a linear gradient effectively. I'd imagine that there's probably inputs that do at least the low level or the simpler version of that. But with the built-in browser thing, not gonna work. So I think what we say is if you change the transparency, we are going to just presume that we are I think if we say if background starts with a hex value, we can use that. We're gonna keep it simple. We can always upgrade later. We're gonna say if you change this, we're going to if color window dot background say we're returning color window, right? Yeah. Okay. So color window no dot background is, so we're gonna set that to okay, this is going to return a set of colors. So if we have colors, okay, this is what we're gonna do. When we first create this state, the state is either going to be set with background and or, well, no, it'll be set with the background. Additionally, it could have a color and an alpha. If color is set, now let's change it off of color. Let's call it hex, because it's always going to end up being a hex in this situation. And we'll say so if this comes in, if we change these inputs and the inputs don't have a, and this window state value does not have a hex or an alpha, we are basically going to set those. So if it starts with this, then we're going to set that specific hex value. And color change is the event. So if it starts with a hex, we're going to set the hex. Or if it starts with a hash or pound symbol, whatever generation you're from, the hex is going to be the color change. We still need the alpha because we're going to convert this percentage value into the hex equivalent, of which case we need to presume that there's a hex value. So if hex is not set, so if you change just the transparency, hex is not going to be set yet, potentially. In which case we're going to say we want to just set some defaults. So we're going to say our normal default was FFFFF. Did I do enough Fs? F in the chat if I didn't. And then alpha default, I believe, is... Can't remember which one's completely opaque. I think it's FF. So now this should give us, if we change one of these values and that input hasn't, and the combination of those inputs is what creates our color. If the combination of those inputs, one of those values is missing, we're just going to fall back to the default. And this is then returning color window, of which case we are setting color. So next state is what we're going to be setting. It is doing previous state, and we're returning color window. So what's color? Okay. And then we're emitting that color. Got it. So then what we also want to say is color window dot background equals color. So now when you change either the hex or the alpha, we're going to be setting the background also as that combination of the two, which will then dictate the value that changes this color right here. So we hit create, that opens up. If we change this, okay, that changed. So if we change this, okay. But changing the transparency didn't immediately work. Interesting, okay. So we're setting the color here. Color change. So if our color change is strictly just the transparency, we're setting the alpha here. Let us log out color window. Let's actually log it out rather than just returning it. Console.log. Okay. Close. Create. Okay, so we're definitely getting the transparency. Oh, but it's not resetting any of this. Okay. So the background's changing. It is actually changing the background. Is that not valid though? It's not. I think I've got too many F's in there. There we go. Okay. So if you change that, it's just gonna like default to white. And then you need to also change the color. So if we have some like complex value in there, not going to happen for the normal use case when you're using that, because you would click this and this would normally just be black or white. I think I'm actually going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. We're going to set it to black again. So if you change this, it's going to be black. And then that means we can go up here. We can change our linear gradient. And we're going to set this to so that again is going to be our default color. I guess we can throw the full thing at it. Is that going to be right? Create black. There we go. All right, I think we've got it all working. So now you should be able to, if somebody does something like exclamation mark hide, we do linear gradient, say red to white, that should work. Pretty sweet. It's not going to work if you do spaces though. So that's going to be the bit that before I do that, let's do a this should give us warnings. So create window runs and then changes the state. So if we get a warning, I think we basically end up just saying list no op. So we can say if warnings.length is greater than 0, then just return. But in there too, I also want to just log out the warnings for at least for the moment. Those close. So now if we would say linear gradient red, yellow, and we've got spaces in here. If you'll, I guess text shadows over this way, we get an error. Unexpected token curly brace, close curly bracket. Can we still, okay, it doesn't break anything, it just fails, which is fine. So this basically just throws an error, which is, I guess, okay. I mean, theoretically we could wrap it in a try catch. I just don't want it to run anyways, so I think it throwing a hard error is probably going to be fine. Maybe we take the warnings off then. You should be fine without the warnings if it's just going to throw. And so how do we deal with that then? Because specifically in our message parsing, we are splitting on spaces. We almost need to do like command parsing, which feels like we end up pulling in like one of the CLI libraries, because it's almost a CLI. You're effectively programming a CLI at this point here. So like it's a parse args situation. Spaces is convenient. I suppose we could just say you can't write any spaces. Maybe that's what we go with for right now. No spaces. So when you're writing any commands, if you do it without spaces, it'll work. Linear gradient. Let's do aqua, blue, and black. And we'll say it's going to be 800 by 800. So this should give us a big window. Gradients. Through Lightning CSS into a CSS style sheet. Basically, we're changing the DOM and adding a style sheet to allow us to, via a string output of Lightning CSS, create a linear gradient. So we're able to use all of the CSS functions via this setup. Do we do anything else? Does anybody else have any questions with Lightning CSS? The API surface is very small, which is good and bad, I guess. Good in the fact that like it knows what it's intended to do. Bad in the fact that we can't do shenanigans as easily with it. It kind of works fine because we're scoping things very tightly. We're saying you can only change this background property, and when we get output directly back from this, we're expecting that you've only changed the background property. So things will just get really weird if you try to do anything fancy here. And I think it'll just end up throwing. So like this will end up not being a valid string. So I guess if you want to like do layers with the background, that has an inherent expectation that you could do spaces. Okay. We're gonna try something real quick. Got one more thing that is worth trying, which we will also, before I run this in any full-time capacity, I'll let y'all do some chaos while we're working here. Where's that example that we were looking at? Yeah, so like this here, that isn't gonna work because there's spaces here. So how do we deal with the parsing? We're gonna need I guess we're gonna need like a command separator. Can we use... Okay, so a background property has to end with a semicolon, right? I mean, it's not like entirely enforced, but if you're doing, you know, like this, if you're doing spaces, we could say, let's split on semicolons. Do we just make that the default? That's the question. And how do we like enable that, I guess? So like you could do something like, if we say hide linear gradient, we could say something like, here, let's actually just type it over here because it's not going to work anyways. If we would want to do something like this, that would, instead of splitting by spaces as we do here, we could split by semicolons. Maybe we just make that the default. Is that, I mean, it's a little bit gross, but like, I imagine that YouTube is not going to have a problem with that. So if we say something like this, for splitting by the semicolon now, it should just work. Because we're not... It's got the spaces in there. So we can do... like we can do something like this then, and say exclamation mark hide this, and say 900 by 900, and we're going to offset it by 100 by 100. Pretty sweet. And like, I think something technically like this would work too then, right? If I just straight up copy and paste this, at least in the client that I'm using, and I'm assuming in the YouTube chat, feel free to try it. It should oh. Am I spawning? I think I might be spawning extra clients here. I'll have to keep an eye on that. It's connected, so I mean, feel free to try it. But if you do something that's like a whole bunch of spaces, like I literally just copy and pasted this, it'll still work. Because we are looking just for the semicolon, and we're passing that whole blob to Lightning CSS and just letting it handle all the spaces and everything. So again, kind of coming back to John's question, why use this to sort of enable what we're doing here? because we want to just take a random input and parse it as CSS. Yeah. I guess it didn't make it too ugly. There's like extra tabs and stuff, so when I pasted it, it looked really ugly in my thing. But it stripped a whole bunch of it. So the bits that I do want to specifically say ixnay on the ability to do stuff. Where is that? Was it this one? So this is doing lots of transparency things, pretty sweet. This might not be something we want to let somebody do, but at the moment we are not handling it. So if we did something like, what is this? Is that an M? No, that's an SVG. I don't know if SVGs will work. Open a new tab. This. Put this into the URL. And it works there. The other window didn't open up though, which is kind of interesting. That is really interesting. So it worked here. It did not work in the window that opens up. Asset not found. Falling back to 8. So I was looking for, wait. Yeah, so there was definitely something funky going on there. So if we try that again. Actually, before I do that, let me bump up we're gonna bump this up a bunch so it stays open for a while. Here we go. Did I create it? No. Close. Okay. So if we run this, it should open it up for a while. We should be able to see it here. I don't see it opening up anywhere though. So it's definitely struggling trying to open that. Let's log out the string real quick. That'll be on line 59. So like it's in there and it is HTTP. Oh, the double quotes. It doesn't seem to like the double quotes. That might possibly be it. Oh, here. The encode URI doesn't seem to happen on the double quotes. Interesting. Yeah, it's definitely not doing it in the quotes. And it is working. So like we're getting it here. And when I close all those, I get a whole bunch of spawn phantom windows that open up. Actually, if I do it again. Do your thing. Okay, now I'm just getting like a random. If we inspect this, failed to, okay, well, it's just opening up the default. We've killed 2 playlists today. I guess I'm playing some more short playlists. All right, we're just gonna close all this because now it's we're We're getting random phantom windows open. So it's ish working. There seems to be an issue with one, we're trying to get the parameter or something in here, or us passing that specific like URL to it. So if we don't make it an actual URL and we just say something like ... I'm kind of curious. This I know is gonna fail. Oh, how did interesting. I'm gonna take these out. Actually keep the color in there. It's still not opening it. So there's something with this encode URI component that it is not liking that. So color redacted. I mean, the parentheses are working because it works with just a normal linear gradient, and we're doing a comma, and it's handling that correctly. But then like this bit, it just seems to struggle with. So if we strictly just do a URL, what do we get? So I think there's something with the parsing there that is, it's struggling to send it via web view not found on invalid label, or it was closed. Oh. No? So our label should be valid. We're just using a timestamp for the label. So it's got to be something with the URL. Because if we do this and just take this little bit off for right now, and we set a background that, wait, we might need to refresh. Connect. Is that it? Or are we not refreshing? I mean, we were getting the log. I think that should be fine. I guess that's the other, back to keep all these callbacks to Jean's questions. Do we still need to do it in Rust? We still have this error. So if we actually want to try to bundle it rather than just loading it directly, we would need to deal with that. So we might have to switch regardless. Okay, asset HTML indexed HTML not found. Fall back to index.html. Okay, so it's logging out the color. And getting the last message. But we should only be opening it. Oh, wait. Yeah, we should only be opening it with colors.html right now. All right, let's close. Just make sure. Yeah, I don't think something's updating as we would expect it to. It's currently opening 2 windows. So something is wonky. What in the heck? We don't need the warnings anymore. We should. Okay. We got 1 window. We're gonna connect. We're gonna create. It opens up a new window that is being opened up with basically an empty URL. So that is fine. Then, so that is working, and we should be logging out the color, which we are. If we add in this, we are getting it coming through. It shows up here. If we would change like the transparency, that all resets, but we're still getting this. Asset index.html not found. I mean, it could be something with the way it's like parsing SVG. We're still only doing that though. So we're setting the background color. That's coming through correctly. And it's showing up and rendering there correctly. This web view window though, is saved, right? Oh, I didn't mean to maximize. Create, that's fine. Close. And just end up keep spamming this at the moment. Rip chat. Web view not found. Invalid label, or it was closed. Okay, so when I hit X, that doesn't exist, so it's freaking out and trying to just like it ends up basically opening stuff. So we try to call where is it? Remove. Okay, so so if the web view window doesn't exist, we're creating a new web view window and then closing it immediately. Can we get a handle to it without doing that? That's one bit that would be nice to just deal with real quick here. Window. Yeah, I guess that was the right place here. Monitors. I don't really care about the. Okay, so like we can get all of them if we do web view window. So we can get web view window for the current window. What's the get all do? Yeah, like I'm just getting these random windows opening. I think it might be related to that. So if we say const windows equals like there's the way that it's like there's not a good way to like handle rectifying the fact that there's like no windows. So I think there's just a method here. So if we do that, that should do, call that function and give us a list of all the available windows. Let's say current windows. So now if we close, and every time I save, it like redoes some of the previous state. So I just keep getting all these phantom windows opening up. So here we've got a list of windows this way. So what we can actually say is, can we close on those? Are those actually like window handles? Prototype. Focus is focused. There's a close. Okay. So we can say current windows. Our web view is going to be a current windows dot find, and this is going to return once. It's gonna run this function until we find the first value and return true. Others, it's undefined. So we can say then if web view, then call close, and then our state is gonna pop it off. So if it just doesn't exist, it's basically gonna no op as far as this goes. So we're gonna say w and w dot label equals window label. So now when I click close, you're not gonna be able to see it, but normally I'll get like a phantom window that opens up there. That's not happening anymore. Okay. So we dealt with that. Connect, create, great, close. Now, if I copy and run this again, it's going to fail opening up the window, but we're not going to get this phantom window that just randomly opens up. And then when we click close, that phantom window issue is going to go away. So via this get all, we can get all the windows and just, so rather than accidentally creating a window every time we click a button to remove it, turns out it's already closed. We won't just like open up this phantom window anymore. Because the other thing too is if somebody clicks create, it's a separate window. You can actually go in like the tray menu or whatever and click close. Like I just click close there. This state isn't synced. You've interacted at the OS level to close that specific window. So like me clicking this before it would create a phantom window, because it was like, well, we can't find this window, so we're just going to create it because we were calling the constructor and then immediately calling close on the constructor. So this way we get a handle to everything. That actually works really well. Okay, so messages is fine. So the only bit is this asset index.html not found. Fall back to index.html.html. Okay, so it's not finding it, which is weird. So it's something with all I'm literally doing here is logging this out, and there's nothing here. Let me just I can't do save all, so good. If I run this and hide the URL, or call out the hide function on it, it shows up here. So it's working in this web view. Okay, maybe this was related to the phantom windows, so maybe that's not an issue anymore, but I'm not getting that web view opening. So even even when I call, let's see, background URL, like this should be working. Colors HTML. Unless, is there some error in here? So if there's no initial color, then we basically are just doing this. There shouldn't be an error here. It's like there's something with the URL being in there. Okay, I'm getting this can I find callback ID in window. There's something funky with that. So I'm calling create window here. We are calling then set window, of which this will be generating the web view. So within the state change, we are setting the web view window. I mean, I could theoretically shift this out. It's a side effect anyway, so I guess I'm not too worried about it. All right, let's close everything. Let's try one more time. I feel like we are potentially just getting into some weird state somehow. I just want to make sure we're like fresh slate, because it should only be using this. So despite what we put in as far as like our input here, this message that we're parsing, it's clearly coming in and working at some level, because it is working here. Oh, okay, so that opened. So we got something open. Did I call it twice? 58, 58. Background. Oh, okay, so that is entirely confusing. Okay, I don't need that. Why would it be firing that off twice? Messages. Oh, is it because, let's see. No. That is weird. Why would it fire that off twice? I am very confused. Close. Let's try that again. Somehow we got two windows, and one of them was like one of those phantom windows. So with this window API, we need to be a little bit careful, because if we just, especially with like React or what have you, if it's just like willy-nilly calling these, if we're not careful about keeping track of the state, we seem to potentially just get a bunch of random windows that open up of the same app, which is going to be very confusing to the user. Okay, so that does that thing properly. Now, this again, spam in the chat. So we're still getting the asset indexed in HTML. It is calling it twice. Why is it calling line 58 twice? Also 58 versus 57. What? So line 58 is actually this. Oh, I deleted. Okay, we're good. I deleted a log and I didn't save it yet. That's fine. So it's calling this twice. So both calls actually do still have this in here. The first call is the default. The second one is without. So this one should be opening it up. Set windows. It's almost like it's setting it so fast that it doesn't have a chance to create those. Is that what we want? I'm gonna move this down here. I think we have some like eventually consistent type thing going on here. Close. So like we're in React state land. Okay, so call that twice now. All right. It's still, I mean, I think there's some bits where like that's gonna be called. Just try red. Okay, that's opening. Null. Okay, that makes sense. So that one opened fine. Because it is not setting any color right now. It's defaulting to black. This is what it would be. But for some reason, if we set a URL, let's link to this. Could I was gonna say this could also be a Tauri security thing. What would be a good image? Is this an image? That'll work. Sure, why not? So if we do hide URL PNG, that shows up. That shows up. Nice. Tracking prevention blocked. Oh, it opened the window. Oh. You know what? I bet you it's because it's an SVG. Okay. I think I've figured it out. There is some sandboxing security, especially around SVGs that can execute code. I suspect it has something to do with that, where it's not handling it in a way that I would anticipate it, or it's not informing me that this is happening, like the Tauri framework. But I suspect what's happening. I might follow up with like Lucas or Tillman on this maybe, but I think it's not loading SVGs from an external URL for security reasons, because if you load an SVG, you could like man in the middle of that, in which case arbitrary code could be executed when you like load the SVG. I'm like 85% certain that's the case, because the PNG worked. Actually, here let's like for sure make sure that the PNG is working. and I don't, oh yeah, see, PNGs work. So it's SVG, that's what it was. But I don't want URLs to show up at all. So what I'm gonna do specifically in this situation is, we're gonna say, I'm gonna say if color dot includes URL, then we're going to literally just say nopes and return. Return, I guess, next state, because we can't just no up here. Okay. Create. And actually I can move this out. We're gonna just straight up no op. And we're gonna say that we're gonna do this. This. That, oh, wrong button. There we go. That. React 18 has their concurrent mode, like double renders. I mean, like you said, for sure, I didn't want to process the URL at all, but I also wanted to see if it worked. So part of it was just curiosity if it was actually working, and it is. Mostly. The URL itself is working. We're handling those properties correctly, but the SVG is locked down. I'm pretty certain the SVG is a little bit more locked down in Tauri app, which is good. So it works. I wanted to see if it worked, but we definitely just don't want to bother processing it at all, because like I don't want people showing random images on the stream. The other thing I was considering, though, there's that React double render thing. I don't think. Oh well, I guess it's pre-act, so I don't think that should be an issue. Because that would be the other thing. Like, we're sort of like firing this off side effect-y like, but it's not. We're emitting an event, and it is eventually consistent. So like, the event emitting itself is synchronous, but it's kind of an async process, which is a little bit awkward. Because how it was something that we were dealing with over here too. Like, we couldn't. There wasn't any way to wait to make sure that this thing exists to then follow up with another event. So like, this thing fires off and we kind of just need to like assume that it opens at some point, and then at whatever point we've assumed it has opened, then we can fire off events. So like, it's a kind of like an eventually consistent, and eventually it'll start subscribing to whatever we're sending it to. But there's no way for me to like fire this off and like know that the thing is open unless we do like polling or like nesting event listeners. I don't know. I can't, like, I imagine that we're in sort of like edge case territory. I think this is potentially something that would be nice to address in the long term. Just as like a general API kind of thing, where we fire off an event, and having some ability to be able to like await that event or await something related to that event would be nice. But I can understand how we've gotten to this situation, and I can't expect all of the edge cases. I mean, it's only version 1, right? So in that case, we have dealt with that situation by passing it when we open up that separate window, those parameters, and setting that initial state that way. So like, when the DOM is loading, it immediately knows what values it needs to set via the params. So that's the way that we've worked around it. It definitely feels like a workaround though. I feel like there's cleaner ways to do it, but like, you know, hey, long stream. Yes. Go ahead and those linear gradient shenanigans you tried last time. Give it a shot. Also, yeah, oof, long stream. I can't go too much longer, otherwise I'm gonna have to pick up kiddo from school. Real long stream. We got in the weeds. But things work. Definitely a little bit of hackery, and I think we're gonna have to shift some of it to Rust. Nice, just copying. Is it not working now? What did I break? Oh, we were chatting here, and okay, yeah, all right, okay, sweet. What? Cannot read properties of map. Linear gradient. Okay. Now that all my screen is covered up, I see your question there, Hamza. But give me 1 second. Let's do this. Where did that happen? 11 and 16. So in the set window, maybe that's an old error. Let's kill all the things. We'll restart it, and then we can do a couple more tests just to make certain. So once I hit connect, feel free to poke at it. It's opening up the window twice. That feels really weird. I am definitely going to do a computer restart when we're done here. All the like random frame drops too. I run it again and only one opens. I don't understand. Okay, connect. Feel free to try things out. Autoscope question, you're using React with Tauri. You're wondering if I have experience with that. We're using Preact now, which is very close to React. And yes, React is sort of my default. That's the one, the current of the modern frameworks that I know the best. So yeah, I mean, feel free to ask a question if you have a question. You were testing a Tauri Windows API with React, but you wanted to create a window based on a custom React component. That is exactly what we're doing. This is a little bit more advanced, a little bit, it's got a little bit of more elbow grease put into it, as we're doing some shenanigans. But I haven't touched this code in a long time, and it mostly works. There's a little bit of gotchas because transparency and Mac private APIs. So if you're in Mac, you know, I think somebody opened up an issue that I keep going, I need to deal with this, but like, I guess we're this way, yeah. But otherwise it works. That would definitely be a good example. But aren't you using an HTML file directly? Oh, I see what you're saying. I see what you're saying now. You have a main window. You want to open up a new window in which it's going to open up just a specific component in your like React component tree or something. Got it. Think of it like it is a completely separate web view. So when you open up a new window, you have effectively a new browser tab. There's potentially things you can do there with like portals and pop-ups. Open up a new window. Can you do? I don't know if I've got a portal. Does Preact have portals? We could try that real quick. React portal pop-up. So portal is a way to have like a ref to a, or like a more modal, or portals are still around, right? React dev portal, create portal, and still like sort of have access to it. Example. I was kind of hoping for something that would be a good example. You're having routes and then opening a new window, you'll just use a different route. Yeah, so when you open up a new window, you're effectively opening up like a new browser tab. So you need to give that new browser tab the like document to open. So like if I right click and open in a new tab, it knows that I'm going to this URL the moment you open up the new tab. I think that's a pretty decent way to think about opening up a new window with Tauri. We can, and we're actually doing it here. When we click create, we're opening up a new window. This is a new window. If we do inspect, you can see the URL. We are actually passing as like a URL parameter the CSS that we want to show up in the style sheet here. So what you can do is you might be able to like reopen the exact same app, but with a parameter or something in the URL that would like route you to the specific page or thing that you want to actually open. But it is effectively completely separate apps at that point. I think, so it's like it's effectively the same as having two different browser tabs open. So then you need to start dealing with like state between them, which that gets involved. So usually you would do, like if you start going down that route, you start either having to do like localhost and syncing, or server-side syncing, or something else needs to also have some understanding of what your state is to be able to like recreate it in the other tabs. So that's one of those, like, it's easy to do one thing and it seems like it's just the next step is to do this, but the complexity just like exponentially increases from here. I would imagine you might be able to do something like this. I haven't actually tried it. If you do like a colors.html / then the rest of the root. Or you might be able to do like, if you're doing in OAuth, where you do the handshake request back and forth, and there's a redirect URI. That redirect URI is basically saying, hey, pass this through as a parameter, and when you're done doing this whole like back and forth, route to that. So in the same vein, you might be able to just open up, if you're strictly SPA, you might be able to effectively reopen the app with a redirect URI and route directly to the URL that you want that window to be open to. But now you effectively have two windows that are like disparate pieces or showing different parts of the app. And you got to think about that a little bit in your UI, because you could then in your second window, if it's intended to be just a widget for this specific use case, you would have to, somebody could theoretically like click a button or go to the main menu, and then you have two versions of the app open, which is, you just want to open up a new window as a PDF viewer. And see, that kind of situation might make a little bit more, or that might be a little bit easier to deal with in the same way that we're dealing with it here. We have an app. Our like main.jsx, app.jsx, that's like our Preact app. When we click create window, we're literally opening up a completely separate .html file that's basically vanilla JS. If it's a simple, I mean, big air quotes here, but if it's a simple thing or a thing that's disparate enough, you don't even have to necessarily use the same framework. You could use like vanilla JS, or like you could theoretically use Vite. You're bundling out probably a lot more than you would actually need, but you could do like a small PDF viewer app that's completely separate than your main app. And effectively you're just opening that, giving it a parameter and telling it what document to open when it loads. Again, if you want to like deal with state back and forth between them, then things get more advanced again there too. But the only other thing I would think about would be, I haven't actually tried it, but I think if you open up a pop-up, I don't remember. I wanna say, I can't remember if it's been something that's been changed and existed, or existed and has changed, or never existed and I'm thinking of something else. DOM pop-up. So if you click something and you get like a pop-up, that is, yeah, so like Google OAuth. Okay, pop-up blocked by browser. So that would be the other thing that I was curious about, is if you could use a pop-up for that sort of situation. But I think, and like this is the thing that starts to get complex, because it's not actually a window as you'd think about like a Tauri app window. And like redirecting starts to get funky too. Yeah, so this, let's see what they did here. I'm guessing basically pop-ups are not going to happen. And if you want multiple windows, you're going to have to actually use like the window API, in which case effectively two apps. Not meaning that your second app needs to be a copy or exactly the same. It could be a pared down version of a specific use case, which is what we have opted for in this. It's time for a cross-tab Tauri window state library to rule, one that just does it in the best way, strong types, etc. Why not? We have React Query, 10-stack router, and so on. Yes, and that is definitely a use case that I've heard. I've heard interest in that. But that's probably going to be something that gets implemented if there's enough interested or parties with the pocketbooks that want that to be a thing, and then the time investment goes into it, because that is not going to be by any means a simple thing to do. And if it's going to be very dependent on the state library that you want to use too. So like you could set up a React query, but that's all specific to browser plus localhost. I mean, you could do some of that via localhost and sync stuff via localhost, and I think that would work. But then you're dependent on localhost doing that syncing, or not localhost, sorry, local storage. And that's kind of like a cache, and like your local storage could be cleared. And things will get weird if your local storage is cleared and then all the new windows have basically a new state. So then you kind of want to put some state in Rust, and now you're dealing with like React wants to own the state, even though it's a Vue library. Vue as in like state is, it's you give it a thing to render and it renders it. That kind of view, not VEVWE. I mean, and then service workers, like if you spin off a service worker, that's going to be tied to a specific window. So now you've got multiple service workers just docking to each other, I guess. It feels like tossing some of that in Rust and having Rust handle some of that is a good paradigm. And this is actually why I've been interested personally in SQLite. I mean, we're sort of like off the rails here, but that's fine. We looked at this on stream a handful of weeks ago, maybe a couple months now. SQLite is interesting to me because you can hold it in state, or you can hold it in memory, or you can write it out as a file. So it's something that a user could own. It's something that you could sync up to a server. There is Fly.io has SQLite or FSLite or something like that. And then everything works off of a single like SQLite file. And if Tauri holds the like connection to that and everything's just sort of like talking to this database, the pattern that you end up settling on feels like it would be very much like you would in a browser, where the browser tab or multiple browser tabs that you have open all are talking to a single source of truth, which is the server. It feels good, but now you need to use something like this. And if your app is built on top of some other paradigm, so I think that's the hard part. Is ideally it would be nice to have some Tauri way that's like generic enough that works for everything, and maybe we can figure out a plugin or something like that. But it's gonna. I don't think it's a simple thing like just spit it off and let's run with it. It's gonna be I think there's gonna be many edge cases and bespoke setups that handle this in different ways. Does that answer all of your questions around that, Hamza? Is it Hamza? I think I'm saying that right. Multiple windows is cool, but it's definitely one of those things where the complexity can ramp up, and testing that ends up becoming more involved too, as we've kind of seen. And all the state stuff becomes more complex, because obviously you don't want like state in one window to be lagging behind another, and then now you basically have like two versions of your app open. I think it's a very interesting use case, and it's something that a desktop app can or would do better than having multiple like browser tabs open. But it doesn't mean it's an easy thing to deal with. Yeah, I mean, the only other thing I could think would be like, I don't think anything with React portals is going to really help you there, because as far as I'm aware, I think all of the pop-ups within a web view or triggered from a web view are blocked for security reasons. And I don't think anything with the portal itself would, like React create portal as a thing would actually be helpful. This sort of like splits off a different, like nests it differently within the DOM, and you can use that to create pop-ups or handle the content in a pop-up, which is nice. But I think all the pop-up APIs are blocked. I'm pretty certain. And I think they've been blocked for a while now. So I think any of the like auth type setups are not going to be using the pop-up, which used to sort of be the default, but now it's less so. If you click on login or something, it does the handshake via redirects. So it routes to a page, you fill in your information or click authorize or something, and then it redirects back. I feel like it used to be like the initial implementation of all the OAuth stuff was you click a button and it does a pop-up. But that became like the way to do spam. And all of the logins situations have kind of gone away from it. So yeah, I think your only option if you want to have multiple windows is going to actually use the window API. And you're basically looking at an implementation similar to if you had multiple browser tabs open. However, it is going to be best to handle it for you. With some potential ability to sync state or push information via this like Rust backend. So you effectively have multiple tabs in a browser with a Rust backend server to talk to. So you can emit events from one web view. Rust will then help you forward it to the other web view or the other window. Yeah, so good question. That was a fun one. Definitely not out of scope. It was like right on brand of like what we've all kind of been playing around with here. I think that's probably a good place to call it though. We got all the gradients working. We got this all wired up. I think we dealt with all the like phantom windows. This all seems to work. You're welcome, Hamza. Hide. Gradient, red, yellow. That all works. So like we've got the full gamut of CSS. We're using Lightning CSS. The only thing that we haven't actually solved for, I don't think this is gonna specifically prevent us from shipping this, but we are getting some 404s, partly because of whatever WASM build setup and the environment's not working together, because I'm guessing web views look different, or there's APIs are slightly different than like what you would use with Chrome. So that's probably going to be the thing we deal with or need to deal with before I can feel like we call this completely done. This could be something that could be fixed within Lightning CSS, potentially. If not, then we might need to move bits of this into Rust, but it's going to require us shift and run state a bunch, and it was just didn't make sense to do on stream. It's cool. It works. We've got a working implementation. I think this is probably something we'll ship. We can I definitely want to like deal with this issue too. But this might be a good place to call this like stream of, speaking of events, might be a good place to call this stream of curiosities complete. So I'm not sure what we'll do next week. Next week is definitely going to be the last stream of the year. I think I'm going to, right? Tuesday. Yeah, I think I'm going to take the last week off, the last week of the year off. Coming into the new year, but we will we'll be back in the year after that. So thanks for stopping by, everybody. We'll see you next Tuesday. I'm not 100% certain what we'll do next week. TBD. I always say, comments. Leave some comments. We'll either pull from my list or comments, or figure out from here. Yeah. Oh yeah, you gotta see the power up too. Did you see the power up yet, John? I can't remember if you were here when we after I added that. Got into the thing, yeah. Yep. We were doing some testing today. Yeah. Do that one. Do that one. And I think we did the 3D before. That was sort of been like on and off working, but I think it works. It just didn't. We made it work. It's little things in life, right? No, glowy eyes. Cool. See y'all next Tuesday. Thanks for stopping by, y'all. Have a good week. Bye.